Evidence of human habitation in London reaches back hundreds of thousands of years. In more recent times, however, small Iron Age settlements grew up around the River Thames, perhaps known to these Celtic Britons as Ploanida or Llandinium. The Anglo-Saxons knew it as Londonvik or London, the Normans Londres. But around the year 47, some 4 years after the Claudian invasion of Britannia, Londinium became a significant part of the Roman Empire, and in the following 2,000 years would become one of the world's great cities. The modern area of Greater London covers more than 388,000 acres, while Londinium, at its height, just 350. On the modern map, it sits more or less on the boundaries of the City of London, a separate entity within the greater area, with its western perimeter east of Blackfriars Station, the Barbican to the north, while its eastern and southern extremities lie within the Tower of London and the River Thames, with a small area of Southwark inhabited that is connected by the first London Bridge. In the mid-1st century, however, the area was largely grassy marshland, with the Thames a much wider and shallower river. The city's origins grew from dwelling and trading posts, but around 61 AD, Boudica, queen of the Iceni tribe, attacked and largely annihilated London. Regardless of this, the city revived to become the Roman province of Britannia's capital, a status which it holds to this day. But in this series, I'll not be delivering the city's history, but more of a search for what survives of Londinium today. Some of it is plainly visible above ground, but the majority is hidden beneath. In this first episode, I'll take a look at the early 2nd century fortress in the Cripplegate area. Some 50 years after the Iceni destruction of Londinium, in approximately 110 AD, it was decided to build a military fortress. Usually rectangular in shape, London's differs in that it is square. Capable of housing up to 1,000 troops, it's thought rather than the base of auxiliaries, the garrison here was likely to be more used to ceremonial duties, such as guarding the governor and other visiting dignitaries. With walls standing 5 or 6 metres high, intersected by corner towers and 2 more along each wall, it also boasted 4 gateways located on the compass points. Lost to time, the fort re-emerged in the 1950s after World War II bomb damage clearance work. And it's at one of these sites on the southwest corner on Noble Street that I'll begin my explore. This is Noble Street, and we come to the first part of the visible fortress. So what we have in front of us is the remains of London Wall in its various stages in history. And this only came to light after the Second World War, after bomb damage was cleared from German bombing, and experts realised exactly what they had here. And you can see obviously what we've got in front is largely Victorian or slightly earlier, but what we have in front of us is clearly Roman. So if we look, we see this curving wall here. That is the southwest corner of the fortress, and here we've got the square watchtower built into it. So this is outside the fortress, this is inside the fortress. We also have some Roman architecture here, and that is the later city wall, which was added approximately 80 years later. And you can see the Roman wall curves round that way. So looking at the southwest corner from a different angle, there's our watchtower, and the wall curves around there. We've got a bit of Victorian, I'm assuming it's Victorian masonry, and then you can see the Roman wall curves underneath it. You've still got the line of it. Nice beehive there with quite a few bees. So as we move along, we can still see the line of our Roman wall there between the much later masonry, and it's still going. So if we get to this area here, so looking on the map, this is the area where it's thought another watchtower would have been, and lo and behold, we do have some walls jutting out. So there's our Roman line again, right there, butted up against the brickwork, and we've got this walls coming out. I don't think that's part of one, but what I'm trying to interpret. So we've got this wall coming out here, and we've got what looks like the makings of another wall coming out there, and I'm making the guess that that is another watchtower. We've got some much older wall here than the Victorian that we've been looking at. I don't think it's Roman, I think it's medieval, but if you look carefully you can see, for example, there and there we've got pieces of tile and brick which was probably reused from the Roman wall, and it's likely built on the Roman wall, which will be down there and used as a foundation. Now our wall that we can see at the moment ends, and we've got a road in front of us, but it doesn't mean to say that that's the end of looking at the wall in this area. So we'll take a walk down this winding road which takes us to a car park. We've got more extensive parts of the wall to look at that way, but if we walk down here, and this unassuming car park, so we come through this door, let's have a look in here. These are the remains of the fortress's western gateway and gatehouse. Now granted, it's difficult to determine any specific features, so please allow me to identify some of what we're looking at. Now the stonework before me is the interior of the fort's western wall. You can actually see the lower courses are the original facing stones. Moving along, and the base of the north turret and guard room becomes visible. This view shows the guard room while standing in the former roadway. Now this road would have been known as the Via Principalis, the principal road. Roman forts throughout the empire tended to be built the same throughout, with the same main road layout, a north-south and east-west alignment. This was to allow the inhabitants to know exactly where they were regardless of their geographical location. The north road thus was known as the Via Decumana, the Via Praetoria to the south, while the east-west the Via Principalis. The gateways adopted the same names, prefixed by the word porta. So our western gate was known as the Porta Principalis Sinistra. Sinistra denotes the left-hand gate, or western, while dextra denotes the right, which would have been found on the fort's eastern side. On the road's opposite side we see the support bases for the gate's arches. Now these ones supported the central column. And here's an interesting feature: the southern or left-hand roadway appears to have been blocked up with rubble, possibly to limit traffic into and out of the fort. This diagram gives a perfect depiction of the remains we see today and where it would have sat when the gateway was intact. And this model shows how the western gate would have looked when the fortress was in commission. However, it's thought that not long after the city wall was completed, the fort was decommissioned and integrated into the wider city. So heading north away from that magnificent gatehouse, the West Gatehouse, we come to our next part of the Roman wall. Now this hasn't been confirmed, not to me at least anyway, and I can't find it anywhere in any literature. However, I'm pretty certain this is Roman because we have a line of tile and red brick. And remember, Roman architecture all around the empire is symbolised by those stabilising courses of largely red tile and brick, and it goes into this much later, what looks like Victorian construction. Looks like a tower of some description, and that'll be for another adventure on another day. In fact, it looks like we got older there, so it's possibly Victorian incorporated into medieval, and it looked like it could have been a warren at one time. So heading north along the fortress wall, we got more recent ruins, but if we look down here, so we're back to our Roman once more. Only a few inches of it, but it's definitely Roman. And how do we know? There's our identifying brick tile course. And obviously this much later wall has been built on top of the Roman, using it as a foundation, and why not? It's great recycling. And then our Roman wall, what there is of it, comes to an end here. We've got another remains of a wall or buttress, whatever it is, up against the wall, and then the other side it stops. I'd like to believe it's still down there, but we still got a good line of the fortress's western wall and still visible despite it being built on. We now lose the line of the Roman wall. You can see the line of it here, it disappears, and then we got more architecture built onto it, and the line of it would have come through here and through that way there, but we are able to pick up the alignment a little bit further over there. So our wall is probably 15 foot the other side of this wall here, and when we get round the corner you'll be able to pick out exactly where it is. So what we have in front of us is the northwest corner of the fortress. So let's just move a little, and I'm standing approximately on the line of the Roman wall here. You've got a bit of wall here which is a good depiction, although it being a lot more modern. Over here you've got a tower. I think it's medieval, but it marks the northwest corner perfectly, and I think it's fair to assume that there would have been a square tower here on that northwest corner, the same as there was back there on the southwest corner. And then our north wall will turn east and follow that footpath along there. A brief return now to the overhead as I turn east onto the north wall, and I find myself in an area called the Barbican, known for its popular arts complex and the architecturally renowned housing estate. The name Barbican is perfectly apt for the area, which comes from Old French and means the outer defence of a castle or walled city. So I'm above that northwest corner now. You can see that medieval tower that we was looking at when we was down there, and you can see the line of the fort's wall as it turns east, and this is the north wall here going along, and then you can see we got some more probably medieval masonry heading east that way before it disappears into a modern housing block. So I'm having a closer look at this. What I determined was potentially medieval when I was having a look at it from a distance over there, and the vast majority of it is. However, if you look at these blocks down the bottom here, 3 courses high, so it starts about here and ends about here, and they're of a different size. They're actually cut, each one to a regular size. They're rectangular, and they look as though they're Roman facing stones, whereas the rest are all of a different shape. They're just fitted together to make up the wall, whereas those look as though they could well be genuine Roman fortress, well, inner facing wall. And it'd be interesting to see from that side whether it's the same. I might be wrong, but I just hope that that is genuine Roman stone down there. The north wall of the fort would have run right in front of me from left to right, approximately at a position where Roman house is today. It was also the site of the north gate with the roadway running out of the fortress. Now this gate was reused in medieval times, and it was known as Cripplegate, a name which gave this part of London the name Cripplegate, and one which is still used today. So after crossing Wood Street, which is behind me, the fortress wall, or a wall, is definitely on the alignment of the fortress wall, re-emerges in front of me, and there's a bit down there which looks considerably older, so I'm going to go and have a look at that. So we managed to get down here, and I've had a good look, and there's no evidence of Roman wall down here. What it is, in fact, is a remains of a church called St. Alphege, medieval, built into the city wall at the time. It's bang on the alignment of the fortress wall, the north wall, and it's a fair bet that there's probably quite a bit of Roman stone reused. This wonderful little green retreat in the centre of London is known as Salter's Garden, and it's actually built right in the Roman ditch outside the city walls, or the fortress walls. So I'm actually standing in the bottom of the Roman fosse, as it was known back then, later reused during medieval times. Now what it allows us is to see the full extent of the wall as it is today. So if we look there, excuse the sun, that's our street level today, and obviously we've got some phases here going on. So if we look at the top, the nice red brick is late Victorian, I believe, and then underneath that we've got medieval, 16th, 15th century, maybe earlier, and then below that we've got our Roman layer, and you can see a great cross section just here as we look up to that distinctive red brick. Now our medieval layer has got this lovely distinctive line that you can see runs all the way along the wall, and below it we don't appear, which is rather strange, to have our normal identifiable Roman red courses of tile running through it. We've got definitely our Kentish ragstone, plenty of that if we get up and close. We do actually have some tile, we've got some there. We've got a nice line of it, so we've got some there, some more there, another bit there. So it's dotted all within it, but it's haphazard. You don't have those lovely straight lines which are so synonymous with Roman buildings. And I think the reason for that is probably because over the last 1600 years it's been rebuilt to strengthen, etc. And as this was the ditch and it was reused in medieval times, this was obviously facing outside of the wall, and it's obviously been rebuilt because over the years it's just going to crumble. What we've also got to take into account is, although I'm looking at the fortress, what we might actually be seeing here is the outer city wall, which, let's not forget, was built at the turn of the 2nd and 3rd centuries, whereas the fortress, which was built in the early 2nd century. So the fortress, as I've already pointed out, predates the city wall, but what it does give is a very, very good impression of just how imposing this wall must have been at its full height. And here, standing in the ditch, you can appreciate exactly what you would have been facing had you been an attacker. Now, as impressive as the Salter's Garden wall is, it is unfortunately the last piece of tangible structure regarding the fortress that we'll see in this episode. However, that's not the end, as I shall complete walking the walls, albeit the ghost of, but it'll give you the locations of where London's Roman fort once stood. Salter's Garden is behind me, and the alignment of the wall is about 6 foot the other side of this window on this building. We've got the A1211 in front of me, and the corner of our fortress, I would say, would have been approximately where this tree is today. So our wall would have come east, turned this way, and then headed south into those buildings. And once again, it's fair to assume that there would have been a square watchtower on this northeast corner. This is Basinghall Avenue. In the 21st century, it's a very busy and very noisy building site, as you may be able to hear. In the 2nd century, I'd have been standing just inside the Roman fort, the wall crossing in front of me from right to left. In this building to my right, probably about 15 feet in, 20 feet in, would have been the Eastern Gatehouse. This road is known as Aldermanbury. To my left is the London Centre, which houses the Guildhall Library. And at approximately this point, probably a good 20 or 30 foot inside the building, is the point where the southeast corner of the Roman fort would have been found with its probable tower. And the wall would have swept round in its normal corner and then headed west, straight through that building there. This is Wood Street, and we're flanking the south wall now. It would have been, yep, you guessed it, inside that building. And it was at this approximate location that you would have found the location of the South Gate, identifiable somewhat optimistically and by this gate in front of me.